it will change the way you work together. Happy to be here and happy to share. Even more happy to answer your questions if there are some there, and I reckon there will be some. So yeah, I think we should go on, Boris.
Yeah, and that's the reason why we try to make that presentation as short as possible, maybe 10 to 15, maybe 20 minutes, because we don't want to present a huge bunch of slides to you. We would like just to share a bit of ideas and then to talk with you. And we are a small group, 20 people, and that should be possible to have a lively conversation. So, of course, well, who we are, I mean, yes, we are a consulting company and we do some nice projects about Agile. And as David mentioned already, a long time ago, we are 10 years old now. And important is we do all the aspects of what Agile coaching. And when a former colleague of David approached us to say, how can we do an Agile transition? And we need to have this kind of leadership program. I said, you don't need leadership program. You need to have a kind of technique where your managers in your organization can taste what Agile flavor really is. That was the basic idea of our program that we started doing so. And yes, we have a lot of customers around Austria and Germany. If you want to have more insights, please look on our websites. You will see tremendous amount of content, 200 videos, publications, case studies, white papers, books. Every aspect of the Agile transition is already there. And we are small compared to the Erste group. David, who is Erste Bank?
Yeah, who is Erste Bank? That's a huge organization. Maybe not everybody is aware, because we are talking about more than 47,000 people. And well, actually, I have to say it's all about the richness of culture and the different countries where we are with Erste. You see the map, and it's all about the retail business and just being close to the customer. I don't want to go in all of the details. And you can imagine that especially the finance industry is, undergoing many changes, a lot of changes, and banks are looking for their identity. And at Erste, I have to say, I mean, we're looking back at 200 years of history. So we're quite around for a while, I have to say. And when it comes to the challenges we're facing today, there's one good thing. No matter if they are colleagues in Romania, in Serbia, Hungary, name it, we're getting closer facing our problems we're having. And it's getting even better to sit together and to think about possible solutions and ways out of there, because we always in the past had the feelings, oh, the Romanians, they are like this and that, and the Czechs, they are like this and that. But especially now in this challenging COVID situation, we find out, and honestly find out, we're on the same page. So I'm working in this huge company, really great to work with, and you will hear that later, they gave me the opportunity to try out things, because it's not all about the boards telling you in learning and development what to do. Try out, and if it's a success, and this is what we want to talk about today, then you can go to the board and they love it. So this is just a side comment. Well, you heard that before, so we can skip that. I wasn't sure where to place that. Maybe a short information. I'm not the guy who was responsible for learning and development half of the career. So, and I'm not the banking guy. So I stepped in that, actually, I have to say 2008, great timing, October 2008, I started in the banking and finance industry. So you know what happened then. And I kind of stick to that, I have to say. And yeah, as mentioned before, and Susanne, thanks for the nice introduction. It's about, trying out things and also being bold at some point, not always knowing if what you do is going to be a success. So that's it from my side, and more to share later on.
I mentioned already, Agile and Silicon Valley has something together in common. And one aspect I just want to mention here, and I would like to take that opportunity to talk about that a moment, just really on a moment. There's this tremendous view on organizations that they have to become agile. And the reason why that is there, and I strongly believe companies don't want to become agile. But I strongly believe is they need to face, or they try to cope with the situations that they have at the moment. Digitalization, things like COVID, change in the industry, as David mentioned, the banks have to change maybe their business models in future. There's a huge amount of things going on. And what the US and especially Silicon Valley created in the last 30 years was a way to deal on a management level with these new challenges. So they created a technique how to align people to a specific endeavor, and in the same times, while creating alignment, they also had been able to understand that you have to give as much freedom as possible to the employees and to the people who do the work to be able to react as fast as possible. So it's a kind of an oxymoron. On the one hand side, you want to direct the people in a specific direction to challenge something, and on the other hand, you need to give them as much freedom to use their own brains and their own ideas to build on. And that's the basic concept behind Agile, and everything else is derived from that approach. How to create alignment and self-organization, or to combine that in a way that is productive for our organization. And that is the basic idea behind Agile mindset. But we didn't want to create an Agile mindset when we started working with David's team, because I don't believe that you can't teach mindset. What you can teach is you can help people to create experience. So people learn from hands-on experience, and when they do, when they make new new experiences, when they are able to see that things works differently, then they start to, I wouldn't even say change, but then they are happy and able to let go and let something emerge. And that was what we came up with a very simple program. Was conducted over 6 modules. The first one was like I just did in a minute ago. What is Agile about? Yeah, what is the framework? Then we had an idea how to organize around a common why, a common purpose. The next step was how to show managers, is there a simple tool where we can help people to see what is going on in their own departments, not talking about Agile, more or less about how can I see what is going on? And David will show us a super nice example of that. Then the importance of getting back to an idea where we can really see how can we enable teams to deliver something of value to an organization or to a customer or so on. Is there a way to help or to change the way how we run meetings, so that meetings starts to become super productive instead of boring experiences? And at the end, we wanted to have a small reflection unit, and that whole unit took 3.5 days, more or less, spread over 6 weeks, 8 weeks. In the beginning was more than 10 weeks. So, and we are on that program now in the 3rd year, and we are currently going on with one of these programs, and we always see the same pattern in the adoption of the knowledge about these managers when we talk with them in that small training program. The very first day is confusion. The second one, well, they try to think about stuff if that really works. And after the 4th, sometimes only after the 5th module, you see suddenly people like it. People start to work on it. People try things out. People understand that a small change in the way they run a meeting suddenly creates huge productivity gains. And that was the basic idea. A very small step to show managers how they can perform their job in a different way, but not talking about things, but helping them to do experiences. And David, what was the feedback on of that program?
Well, actually, as I said, it was a small program, and it's 3 years back. And this was the very first start where we tried to bring something in the organization. And again, very important, there was never the goal for the learning and development department to provide something like this. It just happened because I had an employee in my team, and she was eager to dig into all these agile topics. And then we worked with Boris together. And I have to say I'm proud of, because, you know, sometimes you create a program that's running a year and then nobody talks about that anymore. And in this situation, it's now kind of the basic program running for 3 years. And the feedback was very good because it's not too long. And it's not about, you know, telling you what you have to do to reach what. It's all about the understanding. What I also, and I would like to say is, Boris, what I always liked about the way you're doing this, you're really clear in your messages. And some people were irritated. You're just like, you know, oh my God, you can't say something like this in a bank. But yes, you can. And this was absolutely good, because it's not about, you know, talking around that a little bit. It's just you need at some point to confront the people. And last point where I think it was a success, it was the very first time that we said, this program is, no matter the responsibility at this time of learning and development, a program where we bring the IT management and the bank, the business management, in one training. So they had the possibility to experience together. So maybe now you think, how weird is that? How could you separate business from IT? But I can tell you, I think in many companies just like this, and we're learning a lot to bring business and IT together, especially in those times. And I think this was also a success, Boris, I would say.
Yeah, definitely. That they start. I still remember in the first meeting. Well, if software development department would change a bit on their approach, then we could work, say, the business side. And in the same meeting, in the same room, the software development people or the IT people said, if the business people would listen to us, then. So you had these gaps, okay, and while implementing or helping them to see you need to work together in a very chaotic, globalized and digitalized work, where most of the created benefit in the future is based on IT. With new business ideas, you need to work together. That was obvious in these sessions. But then something really strange happens. I mean, I still remember this when you say, okay, my HR department also needs to learn a little bit of Agile. And then we did a workshop, but after a couple of weeks, you came back and said, yeah, I still remember that in that meeting when they said, we tried it out with our webinar. And that's the next meeting slide, I think, yeah.
That's it. So yeah, I would like to give you a brief story, and not starting immediately with their project. It's just a nice picture to show it's not fake news. It's something real, because you can see myself in the studio actually at Erste Bank, and you can see a photo of the board we created. As I mentioned before, it's a journey, and we were kind of front runner. So what I need to tell you is, we started with this leadership program. And I just said, people, if we are here, the learning and development department, first of all, I think we should start to understand what this is all about. Because at Erste, there was never the decision top down to transfer an agile organization, whatever that means. So we were confronted with this new kind of methods. And I was so bold, but actually not experienced enough to say, okay, let's start with a task board and then just see what is in progress and so on, just to make visible what we're working on. This is not the big agile thing, I know, but it is going into the direction. And you know what? It was horrible because I tried to convince them and they just said, that's so stupid. Why should I put something on a board I'm actually working on, and so on and so forth. And then I found out and I realized, okay, there was a big problem. What's actually the goal? Why are we doing this beside learning a method? And Boris, I remember when half of my team was sitting in the Scrum Master training, you remember, because I thought maybe we should learn that as well. We had some big questions. But now coming to this, and I think this was very important for the whole team, end of the day, because it was a best practice. We started 3 years ago with webinars. I mean, now that's not rocket science, but 3 years ago, it was not like today, I have to say. And actually, we just said, we want to reach out into the organization, and we want to give them with external speakers in just an hour, very precise and on the spot, you know, input for the managers, for the employees. And we did it in a very, very high sophisticated way, because we have the privilege that we have on our campus in Vienna a real professional studio. And so I just said, I don't want to sit in front of the know how hard it is talking to someone, not seeing if they're still listening, how they're looking and whatsoever. So we just wanted to do that together. So to make the story short, we started 3 years ago providing professional webinars done live from the studio at Erste Bank with external speakers. So that was the start. And then we found out that there is a need for a small team working together, because when you think about the moment providing this webinar in the studio, the complexity and all this IT stuff, we were not so experienced like today with MS Teams, for example, we're working with, or you probably with Zoom. We found out, okay, we need people, and we need to structure ourselves. It was chaotic, because it's also about, you know, is there drinking water for the external speaker there in the studio, and so on. Little small things we need to put together. And then we had a new colleague stepping in, and we said, oh, that's a great resource. She should get into this topic and support us. She was lost. And then they by themselves found out, maybe we can use the idea of the task board. Maybe we can use these agile principles we talked about, maybe for this webinar thing. And what you see here, and actually I can tell you that this is still ongoing. Now we are using Miro, because we are not that often at campus and we are changing. So we have a Kanban board with Miro, but we're still working in the same way. And I have to say, you know, the best things, you only know if they are up and running after a while, and not only just, you know, for one moment. So what we did is we just said, what kind of speakers do we want to talk? What kind of topics do we want to provide? Who is involved? Is it connected also to leadership development? What can we use there? Are there other initiatives? Yeah. What is the progress, and so on? So don't get me wrong, it's not about a nicer and fancier project management, far away of that. It was just a way for people in my team to organize themselves in a complete different way. And actually, I have to say, because my department is now, as I took over other responsibilities, is very big. And I don't have a layer, a hierarchy layer. But this was actually the moment when I realized, great, I don't have to take care about that. So they are fine. They have a way to organize themselves. They ask me exactly when they need support. And everybody is highly welcome from other areas in the team to check out what's going on there, because it's visible and they can possibly contribute. And what they also told me is, and there was one colleague, Andrea, she was the front runner of the whole thing with the webinars. She said, oh my God, it's such a relief, because if my son is sick and I can't make it, I know exactly that everything is clear, is visible, and others could step in, and it's not about one person who's responsible and the others doing just, you know, the bits and pieces like in a project management. And this was the first success. And so the others realized and just said, well, that's a great way to have this board. What is in progress? What is in the backlog? What is already done? And so more and more things and topics turned out to be organized or to be tackled in a different way than we did it before. And also I can tell you that hopefully I'm not too open in that to say, it's in learning and development not always the case to deliver something on a certain date. Not always, because trainings you're planning, this is not the point. I'm talking about strategic projects. With the webinars, we knew exactly you need to deliver, and you need to deliver on the point. And so we learned in the whole department by now that when we're talking about strategy initiatives and so on, we stick to what's in the backlog, what is doable in a certain amount of time with resources. And then the team is more self-organized and more self-responsible to bring things to a certain point. And it's not me as the manager asking, is this done? Is this provided? And because the point is, actually, you see me, the first 1.5 years, it was just me doing the moderation. And I tell you, I was just getting into the studio, got the presentation the day before, everything was perfectly prepared. And I could, in a kind, I mean, it's not always relaxed to stand in the studio talking to hundreds of people live. But to sum that up, I had the feeling and I was convinced everything was organized pretty well. And everybody in this team had the contribution on that. So hopefully that was not too blurry to explain our first approach on that, and happy to share other experience we had, because I have to tell you, we had downfalls and we had moments where we just thought we don't want to hear all this agile stuff anymore. And what does it help, and what is it all about? But today, honestly, I have to say we see that differently, but maybe later in connection to your questions.
Yeah. So basically, as I said, we didn't want it to make that much demonstration and slides and creating content just to bore you. We wanted to be open for questions, and as David said, it's a journey. And what I found interesting, David, so I'm there now, and then do the next training and program at the moment with people from your company. But what I noticed is that even if we did very small changes in the beginning 3 years ago, the perception of Agile in the bank has changed dramatically.
That's true.
And we worked with management. We didn't work. I didn't work with teams. I worked with management. And one of the insights that I had during these times is it's very beneficial to work with managers. Don't frighten them with these Agile approaches, because a lot of coaches says we don't need management. And I don't believe that. I believe that management is the one who will be able to transform the organization. So therefore, they need to come up with ways to do this, and they need to see the benefits for themselves. I mean, that was the idea. And maybe you can talk a little bit about what are the benefits for the managers.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean that's actually, my understanding of learning and development is not wandering around and telling people what they should do to be fit for the future regarding their competence development. This is not the point. And honestly, I have to say, when we stepped into this topic, this agile thingy was around, and the manager said, oh yeah, agile, that's the way when there's no proper project management and everybody's able to decide whatever they want, and then it's chaos. So this was the reality. And I thought at some point you also need to prove what it's all about with real practical insights. This is what we also shared, the experience of learning and development as well. And it's a long way, I have to say. And Boris, I don't know what is your observation or impression now. This whole COVID situation changed dramatically the way, and it's not only about online things, but we need to organize ourselves differently. And this is one of the small, if I'm allowed to say, positive aspects, because we are suffering because we can't do it the way we did it in the past. And now these methods and tools could possibly help us to work together in a different way than we did in the past. So Boris, I don't know, maybe you experienced it as well or not, I don't know, but it helped.
All what I've seen so far, we have been very surprised by with not only with you as a customer, but with a lot of other customers. Our observation had been that these people who had been trained already in an agile way, fashion to work, let's say it this way, they knew how to organize themselves. They could use a Miro board or a board in MS Teams or whatever. That was one of the tools they used. On the other hand, the funny thing was they started to understand, they knew already how to organize online meetings via not that they, it was not about a technical tool, MS Teams or Zoom or whatever it is. They knew how to run a meeting with these tools effectively. And what we learned over time was these teams had been much more productive than in their offices. Suddenly they knew how to organize themselves. And of course we heard sometimes, yeah, the management is not there anymore that can interfere with us, you know.
All the time, yeah. So let's listen to you. More interesting to hear your questions, because it's pretty tricky to come to the point when looking at the development, which was taking, you know, a long time, and the journey, as I said. Is there anything you would like to know, to hear? Boris, this is the quietness.
But you have to wait sometimes. Where's the
and
chat
it's also
window?
okay to say, oh, what was that about? So I expected to hear something about this or that. So there's still time.
Yeah, you can. Please unmute and start talking or asking. Linda, you raised your hand. Come on.
I'm super.
Oh, there's a poor.
Yeah.
You have a very bad connection.
I think we lost her.
Yeah.
Okay.
Linda, maybe a bit later because the connection is so bad. Michael, you raised your hand.
Yes, I raised my hand. Thank you so much for this great presentation. And I know from some of my own change projects, obviously there is always some kind of resistance within any kind of project that involves change. So I was wondering, what were the greatest obstacles, the greatest resistances in your project, and what was your recipe for success? Because this obviously sounds like an amazing success story, and congrats to that.
Boris, you?
We didn't want, I give then you, of course, because that's let's have both insights. The issue was we didn't want to change someone. That was not a change project. That was maybe the secret sauce. We just came in and said there are some tools that had been developed by the Agile community, and of course you need to do a little bit of an introduction. What is this Agile buzzword all about? That was important, but we only told them there are some tools that you might use in your own work. And if you are interested in changing a little bit with your own work, there was some entry barrier. So we asked them, if you really want to have a project where you would like to try something out, that was the entry barrier. But then we said, it's not about changing. It's not about doing some weird stuff or doing big Agile. It was just, why not using a task board, for instance? Maybe that will help. Try it. Try in a retrospective. If it works, fine. If it not works, throw it away. And that changed everything. My observation. David?
Well, yes, I have to say, to answer that, the biggest challenge in the beginning was that our management, when we talked to them, were not able to distinguish between what is an Agile method and technique and what we mean by talking about this Agile mindset. They mixed it completely up. And this was the very first step to make that clear. And taking out the pressure, that was one thing. And the other thing I have to say, part of the success was just always making sure and reflecting what we are talking about. In such a huge organization, you see the front runners. And then there are some people and managers, they think, if I want to be in front, if I want to be perceived cool, and manager of the future, I need to do something now with Agile. No matter what, I just do that, because we're also doing the consultancy, internal consultancy. So part of the success was also to tell them what it is, what it isn't, and keeping the ideas and what we tried out small. And this was the basic success. And also I have to say, you need to be around if they've got the feeling that it's getting a bit, you know, it doesn't turn out the success that they expected. Last sentence on that, I can tell you, and maybe that's in other companies as well, a bank is not a good place. They sometimes say failure culture, which is good. We need to have, you know, mistakes and failures. But honestly, I can tell you, banking doesn't like failures. And this is also the part. So we need to go the way and just say, try it out. Nothing happens. And don't try it out with the biggest and most important project or thing you need to deliver. Just try it out. And end of the day, there is no right or wrong. And what I experienced, there's also a Erste way of Agile rather than implementing a Spotify theory or whatever it is. Yeah, does that answer your question or?
Yes, thank you so much. Fantastic.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
So Linda, second try.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Perfect.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Apologies. First of all, it's quite impressive, David and Boris, what you guys did with the Erste group in consideration what a big organization it is, and also with the conservative approach with banking, especially to allow or to, as you described it, doing baby steps. My question was exactly that is, and I think you answered it, was how did you, David, you know, Boris, what he's doing is amazing and it's clear and it makes sense. And there's a lot of, let's say, entrepreneurs who don't even realize that they're doing that in their own companies because they just felt that that's how they should conduct business, and are actually benefiting right now under this crisis because they're able to do a lot of things with their employees who have worked in this type of environment. But how did you create those baby steps as far as getting the managers to really change their mindset to understand agile technique and the agile mindset? And then you use the word the Erste mindset. So that also brings the second question is, how do you incorporate that into your company culture?
Yeah, well, huge things. I have to say, well, let's bring it down to earth, because actually I have to say we're in the middle of that. And I will tell you then where we are right now at the moment. First thing is we just started small. Then people participating in this program told others, and they were allowed to just say, if you know someone, let us know, and they are the next round. So this was the first thing. There was not a huge culture or something like this initiative. Why? And this is the same thing I have to say where we're struggling at the moment, because it was not from top down to say, we want to become more agile, we want to go that way, we want to change the culture in Erste in a more agile mindset. It was just happening here and there. And actually what we did, and this was the best decision, to bring the IT guys and the boys and girls into that as well. So they were included because they're much more experienced in that. And suddenly we had groups of people working together beside this program. But to be honest and to tell you the whole story, I just had a talk a few years ago with the management, and they just said, it's so great. We have great people who are engaged, who love to drive the change. But now you know what? We need clarity. Where do we want to go? Because we've reached a point where we have all these kind of agile satellites and success stories. And we try to bring that together and showing it also in these webinars. But now is the point where we need to say, yes, or let's see. You know what I mean? And this is now the point where we need to be clear on that, to be even more successful when it comes to that.
David explains in development in a lot of large corporations that you can currently see. Most large organizations have some flavor of Agile now running. Like David mentioned down Erste Bank that we created, and that this was very helpful that people started to get this experience. But the challenge is that we have to create a culture that is agile. And this is where we have to But the next step is that top management says, we want that, whatever that really means. But they have to jump, and that is the experience from the observation that we came up with in the Netherlands and in the Benelux and even in the northern countries. They jumped already, more organizations jumped already, and now there's the next productivity gain. And I really recommend that you go to internet and search for General Electric appliance and hire. Hire is the world's largest manufacturer of ice cooling Kühlschränke, so appliance. And they created micro enterprises, and they told us about this whole change in the bureaucracy in these large organizations. So it happens already. And yes, Germany and Austria is a bit behind. But exactly what David mentioned is the point now. Lots of organizations have already great experiences, some failures, but mostly positive. And now they need to say yes or no. It's really important to do.
And Linda, may I add to that? I see personally at the moment a great window of opportunity, because we in Erste, we are talking about, we had a research, new way of working. Because, you know, after COVID, there will be a different reality how we work. And this is now a great opportunity to pick this agile mindset, resilience, all the stuff together, and just to say, how do we want and how do we need to work in the future to keep collaboration and productivity high? So, but this is just the latest development on that. So I see the opportunity, rather than saying we need to bomb agile because we want to be faster as a bank because we are far too slow. Now we see we need to change the way we work because of this new way of working. This is just what I think. You need to put that also in this whole strategy. Maybe this answers also your question regarding culture, because it's stronger now. The situation now is pretty strong looking into the future.
I have to say, I do agree with you, because we're seeing a pivot, not just in Austria, but actually from a global perspective, which is affecting us globally on whether it's in the finance or manufacturing or everything else. And I think what we will be finding out is that this agile mythology, or I mean, with Boris and what you guys have done and introduced into companies, which was going on anyway for a while in Silicon Valley, which for most people we thought was a no-brainer, but we didn't realize that when coming to Europe, not everybody works that way because they're used to the hierarchy system. I think also, what is your perspective as far as how do you see moving forward? So there's going to be a new work environment. We know that it's coming. There's going to be a new way of conducting business, like we're doing today, having dialogue. How do you see that impacting leaderships? Because, you know, this is a process that I think is going to take another 10 years for people really to let go and let their people just work.
Yeah, I can answer that, and just not inside information. We did a research and a survey in July, and we got from 19,000 employees information and data. And we have this new way of working initiative up and running. And actually what we do at the moment, we clustered the results, not going into the details, in what do we need to tackle regarding the leadership and culture topic, the productivity and collaboration, the workplace and technology, and also the kind of, you know, health and things like that. So we have now in Austria, but also with the countries, working groups. And I can only tell you, there are some things where we have some quick wins because of this current situation, some things that we always talked about. I mean, like, you know, what are good, efficient meeting setups, or what is a good way to organize you with your team and so on, to give more responsibility to the employees is now reality. But there are some things we need to consider, and I'm so happy that our CEO, Bernd Spalt, is so behind that he says, look, we need to find solutions which are not, you know, reflected the last 6, 7, 8 months as good, We need to sit together in 2 years and just say, oh, they're still working. It's still working what we are doing here, and not reflecting on a crisis period. And so, yes, there's a lot we need to look at, but maybe, hopefully that's not too naive, but I think it's there already. But now we have the pain of the people, of the managers, how to handle everything, that they are open for things that we talked about from learning and development the last years, like you should be more resilient, you should give more responsibility to your people. And all of a sudden they're confronted with new tools, new techniques, and a lot happened. That's my last comment on that. A lot happened, and I was so astounded. It just happened. They learned how to handle MS Teams. They learned how to organize their teams. There are so huge success stories out there, and I can tell you there was almost no training. Yeah.
Can you imagine trying to introduce MS Teams 2 years ago? Even if it would, let's assume it had the same functionality today. A nightmare, you know. Everybody wants to have a training.
I had a big discussions. I had a big discussion. I can tell you, just a month before the crisis started, and they told me, David, you need to train the people for MS 365, and it was from the project team. I said, are you completely crazy? I'm not doing that. That's not my responsibility. That's from the project. Then COVID hit us, and all was solved because everybody found out how to provide a proper meeting. But Linda, yeah. So back, yes. There are big changes, but we should also be, clear on that. No philosophical discussions right now. I can only tell for Erste, there are some low-hanging fruits. We should reflect on what is working, looking at the data we have, because we have this precious data from the survey we did, and making the best out of it. And also for us, as such a huge company, this is also an insight I can give you. We had these surveys for employee engagement and so on. All the countries were always completely different. This was the first time in the nearest, in the history, that's a bit exaggerated, where we have the same results. The same results on this kind of home office, COVID, Corona, new way of working situation. So I see, to bring it to Agile again, here a huge potential in looking at the leadership and Agile.
Maybe one.
Linda, sorry.
I step in again. Michael.
Sorry, Michael, go ahead. I'll ask my question after you, Michael.
Thank you. Sorry, I'm heading in once more. You mentioned earlier about Sweden and also the Anglo-Saxon countries, and obviously Scrum and Agile was developed there. And I work also as a consultant in the field of intercultural management. So culture is obviously something that interests me a lot. And something that you have in the Germanic countries is this high uncertainty avoidance. How do you perceive how Agile is approached or implemented in the different cultures, in countries with different cultural backgrounds? What are the differences there?
There are huge differences. And there are a lot of similarities. And one, I could talk about it hours about that topic. But for me, there's one interesting approach in Agile that creates that resilience or that possibility to cope with uncertainty. Agile says work in iterations. And at the beginning, management always says, I need to be secure. And then a lot of people say, yeah, but you have to trust your teams. And I never understood that, because for instance, in the software development industry, 20 years ago, 75% of every software development project was a failure. Try to implement SAP. It is a failure again and again and again and again. And then this team suddenly says, please, now we do Agile, now you have to trust us. That won't work. But Agile made a very interesting counter attack, so to say. They said, you don't need to trust us. Give us maybe a week or maybe 2. But if we are not able to deliver something in a week, we are obviously wrong people. And that works in every culture. It's strange. It even worked in China and in Bulgaria and in wherever I said, you don't need to trust us. But can I please get 2 weeks? And of course, then you have to deliver, you know. And that was always the key to success, and that works in every culture so far. And maybe I'm wrong, and maybe I will find that somewhere else on the planet it's not the case that this works. But as far as I understood, a lot of cultures, South Africa, Brazil, China, even Austria, Australia, even in Austria that works, you know. And that's maybe the worst case scenario for being a very, very, very autocratic, and Austria is much more autocratic and hierarchical than you believe. I mean, on the outside, it's super crazy.
Perfect. Thank you so much. So basically, results, you deliver the results, and that's what gives a trust into the whole methodology.
Deliver results, and don't talk about things. Do it. That's the main idea behind Agile. Don't talk, show. Linda.
Actually, you answered you answered my question by answering Michael's question, especially with the last bit is don't talk, just show. I think that's one of the hardest things is when you do your deliverables and just show it. But I also understand that in Austria, as an expat, but living here very much, you know, there are a lot of people who are open-minded to trying new things and working towards this. I'm just thinking about from the larger organizations, in particular with some of our corporate partners here that are members of AmCham, you know, like it is something that's quite new and for them, and to understand, as you said earlier, to actually let their employee go for it and just do it. And I just wanted to ask David if you could give me two sentences, just two, about what your benefit was with Boris. That would be really interesting for me, with what he did for you. Just two, just short. My elevator talk.
Challenge accepted.
Okay.
First of all, being direct and confrontative in a positive way, not talking around, naming things, confronting people, getting them out of the comfort zone, first thing. And second thing, being consistent in what he's talking about, but at the same time, not ignoring the reality and the culture of the company he's working with. That's
very good. That says a lot. Congratulations, Boris. That's a big compliment.
Yes, thank you, David.
Well, we're working together for quite a long time, and it was a success, I have to say.
Any other question? Christoph, Heiko, Jean-Pierre, come on.
Sure, a quick question. I didn't get to another meeting, but I'm hearing a lot about the technical side of things. And of course, there's the human side of things. You know, for me, it's always a projection. The technical is just a projection of the human and what we're trying to achieve. So what impact have the changes had on relationships, communication, not just being able to pin something on Miro, but really having open communication, creating an environment of trust where people can address the elephant in the room, or call things out for what they are.
David, that's up to you.
Yes.
Up to you.
Yeah, I can tell you that is the trickiest part, I have to say. We had big problems implementing things that managers just said, I want to do so. Then they were confronted that people just said, I don't want to share. I want to show what I'm working on, and so on and so forth. So that's a long journey, I have to say. And I can't answer it with the one thing. We found out that, you know, managers are really struggling at some point because they need to go through this valley when it's not working so properly and everything is visible. Not everybody likes that, but you need to keep on. And honestly, I have to say, now we are more experienced, and if someone says, a manager, I want to try out Agile, we really talk for a while, because sometimes they don't know exactly what that means for you as a manager, because there are many questions, and it's hard, you hear already, it's hard to answer that, you know, precisely, but this is taking a long time, I have to say. And there is no answer right or wrong from my side. Boris, maybe you are more successful in answering that.
No, I just have a slight comment on that. It's what I learned over the last 20 years is it is much more enjoyable to work with people who would like to work with you than trying to convince someone who does not like to work with you. And the interesting fact is that you have this interesting product adoption curve that you can also use for social change. There will always be someone who would like to work or would like to change something. And instead of just trying to convince all the time people who don't want to work with us, we should much more focus on people who would like to work with us. And when I started to use that approach 20 years ago, I was much more successful than before. It's so crazy. Yeah.
No,
Even then,
Boris. Yeah.
Yeah, that is really, I mean, it's really the case. And that was exactly the approach that we chose in that with the small idea 3 years ago. We said, who would like to know a little bit more about Agile and who would like to try something out? And try to be a bit successful with the teams. And 8 of 10 tried something out, and then we had a success. And that creates a wave over time. Okay, that's my experience. And the social change, that is the other aspect. I strongly believe if someone has a benefit of an activity, he will keep doing that. So you need to show people what is the benefit, and not only show by telling them, but really they need to experience that benefit. And if they see that benefit, they will keep going.
Thanks for that. I wanted to say that to Linda's comment before, and also looking from the company perspective, it's just not possible to reach everybody. But we see for those things, it's good invested time and energy to focus on those who are willing to. And actually, my responsibility is not to reach out for everybody that they change their mindset and whatsoever, because they will find out by themselves. But what I'm responsible for is once they realized I need to change something, I need to learn something, they don't need to run around in the organization looking for possibilities to develop their skills. It's already there, like the program we managed. And this is actually, I think, for us in the learning and development industry, to change also our mindset. It's not on us to convince the whole organization. And end of the day, we can call ourselves lucky if we reach 50%. And you know, there are so many people out in the company doing a great job, and we don't need to convince them to change anything, because as long as they are successful, they won't listen to us. But there are others who are happy to share, to experience. And this is what we're also here for, and where we invest a lot of resources, I have to say, within Erste, and to give those people the opportunity to develop and to learn together. So Boris, thanks for that. I wanted to mention that.
Yeah, thank you for answering the questions, David and Boris. I do need to check out to head to the next Zoom meeting.
Yeah, it's 5 already.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Jean-Pierre.
Bye.
So many thanks to both of you giving us such interesting insights and useful information. And thank you all for joining us today. So just let me announce our next events. On November 27th, we have an AmCham talk with Philipp Maratana. He is also called the Kanzlermacher, with his topic Begeistern, Wachsen, Großes Bewegen, die neuen Gesetze für Erfolg und Freiheit als Unternehmer. Und dann haben wir noch, Jean-Pierre just said goodbye, but an interactive webinar on December 10th with Jean-Pierre Kalenian from AP Consulting, Adapting to Change or Changing to Adapt. That also sounds very interesting. So we would be happy if you will take your time and join us again. Thank you very much to all of you for joining. Take care and stay healthy. And yeah, so I will close the Zoom now and say goodbye to you and see you next time. Bye-bye.
Thanks
Thank
a
you.
lot.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
David, vielen Dank. War super.
Ja,
Merci.
With great pleasure. With great pleasure. Bye-bye.
Ciao.
Ciao.